Hello friends, my name is Monali and today I'm going to talk about Sprint 3 of our project Secure Underwater File Sharing. And our team is for me, Sanjana, Akash and Jyoti. So I'll give you a bit introduction about our project that was basically for underwater file sharing and to create a secure system so that n- there are no data loss or any um, threats which can be prevented. Here is the product backlog. Basically, our client had asked us to design a system for the communication so that all the communication what happens underwater stays secure and there is no intervention or nor any enemy nodes can uh, interrupt or distract any services or communication. We also had many other tasks which we had to perform. One of them was also to understand the IoT data and to apply in design that many teams is making. We were also focused on creating a design requirement. We also had to take into consideration of all the conditional threats as well as the cyber threats, and we also found out the countermeasures to overcome those threats in this project. As Now I will discuss few user stories with you. Uh, there were many user stories, and first our task was to find out all the conditional threats and the cyber threats. Then me and Sanjana were working on finding out the threats. Akash was in charge of figuring out the countermeasures for them. So um, he found out that okay, if there is this conditional threat or this cyber threat, then what could be the possible solutions or outcomes for them? And Jyoti was basically working on integration of those threats. So we had to figure out okay, if there is some particular threat, how long that threat stays in the communication, what are the countermeasures we are taking to overcome that threat. Also, we had to figure out okay, if this particular threat enters into a communication and by the time we apply the countermeasure to it, for this particular time it stays in the communication, and in that meanwhile how much destruction or damage does it to the communication. We also had to take care of that. Moreover, if in the communication, if that threat is there, there are also chances for um, losing any confidential data. So we were designing a system that take cares of everything and make sure that the damage done in the communication while the threat comes in and goes is minimal. We also had to define some security requirements and yes. So in the left side of the page diagram shows the underwater network area. It shows how different attacks are made and how the communication channel happens, how the enemy nodes intervenes the communication and disrupts the channel. And on the right side of the page, there are attacks and its countermeasures. It's a diagram showing all the attacks. Yes, then we had a review meeting with the client on 8th of October at between 4 to 5 o'clock, and it lasted 45 minutes. And client had asked us to make this a Google site using different Google's pages, like we used Google Sheets, Google Docs, and Google Slides to create a complete Google site in that. And client had given us many different feedbacks regarding our dashboard which we prepared. He wanted us to make some changes in the terms of the appearance, look, and the visibility, and of so that even a normal person can easily evaluate and understand the dashboard. Then we had the retrospective meeting of that on 15th of October between 4 and 5 again with our client Dirk for Headford. And meeting went very well. He was happy with our design and our presentation. And the only thing we needed more to work on is on our Google site. He wanted us to improve it in the terms of presentation. He wanted us to make it a little more attractive, and by adding some pictures and some more user friendly. We had to make it a little more user friendly. Apart from that, everything went very well. Now, if I talk about the individual component, as I said before, Akash was working on the countermeasures of whatever threats me and Sanjana were figuring out. And I was in charge of finding out all the cyber threats and the constraints because of which the underwater file communication gets affected. Yes, and Sanjana was in charge of finding the conditional threads, and Jyoti was in charge of work of integrating all the threads and everything. We had done a lot of research and studies about this, and yes, and as you can see on the right side of the page, there we have got a Gantt chart which shows all the estimated burn downs and actual burn downs, and below the Gantt chart there is our dashboard. This is a screenshot of our dashboard of what we had prepared. On the dashboard, to the outmost left we have current threats or conditional threats, and in the center we have cyber threats and the severity of those threats, both the threats. And on the rightmost side we have all the threats listed and the countermeasures for the following threats. Here are the references from which we had done our research and study. And that's all what I had to share about Sprint 3. Thank you.